Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team career mode. This is episode number 67 today for the Canadian Grand Prix in Season 4. If you guys did miss the previous one at Singapore, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a pretty crucial race, especially because our engine didn't fail, so that was the first positive. And then, of course, what happened in the opening lap, putting us down to last place, and with a 300 IQ strategy play to pit under the safety guard, go from lap 8 all the way to the end of the race on the same set of hard tyres, was able to secure ourselves a podium. But it was Sebastian Vettel who shone through and showed he really is the lion at Singapore with a race win there. His second of the season, of course, in two different Audi teams, with Felipe Drugovich coming through in second place. And for us and Vettel and Drugovich, that meant we all gained points on the championship leader, Lando Norris, in the McLaren. Albon had a bit of a quiet race and want to forget. He's had a string of those. He'll be wanting to bounce back, and especially because the Red Bull car is actually quick and technically on paper is in the top 3 on the R&D chart. So they're not making the most of it, I guess, and especially the other way around. McLaren have made the most of it because they're actually technically lower now than Mercedes, and yet Lando is still consistently there, getting enough points to carry ahead this championship lead he's now got off the back of the Imola GP and Singapore. But we're all going to hope to make some ground maybe around Canada, Montreal, one of my favourite circuits. But we do face a few challenges before we get to the Canadian GP weekend, because both the ultimate air upgrades we're going to bring to the car, the final downforce upgrades we can actually bring to this car in total, they both failed. Now, thankfully, there is enough time in the activity timeline until we get to the next race weekend, and we are going to have just enough R&D points to repurchase both these upgrades. The first one we'll do right now, we'll go through the activity timeline, earn a couple of more points with the kind of weekly income we get of R&D points from our different facilities, and we should be able to repurchase both by the end of it. But that is going to maybe then stunt further upgrades, because of course I did have about, over 2,000 R&D points, and now they've had to go into an upgrade, 2 upgrades I already technically bought. So that's a bit, again, wasted opportunity. We've had a lot of those failures this season, unfortunately. One thing that didn't fail, thankfully, was another reliability upgrade on the MGUK. That was, of course, the component that failed on us twice, so pretty important to get another improvement on that. But then we did get a second component on the durability side that did fail, and I don't have enough points to repurchase that because we're just under 500, and this is going to cost more than that. So we're going to have to wait to repurchase that. But nonetheless, those 2 ultimate upgrades did come in. We brought one more reliability upgrade, so let's really all cross our fingers that the engine won't blow up today, because our car is in a really good position now. Having rebought those ultimate upgrades, we have made huge strides to bridging the gap to Haas, and along with us, our Audi Sport sister team have joined us. They're actually ahead of us by a small, tiny pixel. So they're now the second best car on the grid. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster for the sister Audi team. Obviously the team that Vettel started in. Obviously they started off with a race win with Vettel. I think they were the 4th best team on the grid. Then they really slumped in that kind of middle part of the season. And then every AI team, they've just been grinding away, and everyone is improving. McLaren have upgraded so much that for the first time, I think, all season, they're now ahead of Red Bull in the R&D chart, and Mercedes have got their up as well. So it's going to be a very tight fight, I think, between the McLarens, Red Bulls, and Mercedes. And it could be quite an interesting fight between us 2 Audi teams, and quite spicy because of the history, of course, of the drivers in each respective team. And Haas will be looking to still manage to be at the forefront there. Maybe not having the same massive, advantage and dominance of pace, but they're still the quickest team on this grid. So they're going to be up there, and I'm sure people like Schwartzman, after the DNF he had at Singapore, will be out for blood. And also even Drugovich, after, having a go at us for P1 and then eventually losing out the P1 to Sebastian Vettel in the end. Both of them will probably be raring to go. But like I said, one of my favourite circuits. Hopefully we can show some good speed early on this Saturday. We do so getting up into the top 3 as it stood there, but then P4 by the end of it. But Vettel showing he's also got some good speed around here. Schwartzman P2, Norris P3, Leclerc, Drogovic, and the two Red Bulls looked a bit slow there. Albon down in P12, Tsunoda P8, they're going to have to pick up the pace, and definitely you're seeing Audi Sport also looking a bit quicker around here. Q2 then, this is the crucial one, because we've got so many different teams and different drivers going for just 10 places here, so it seems to be getting even tighter and tighter as we go on through this season about who's going to get knocked down. It's less shocking when someone does get knocked out. It's just a case of it is how it is, because there's too many teams going for all the same positions as we now come across the line on the right hand side, the shortest run, and it is a tasty lap to get us up into P2 and get into that top 10 shootout along with Sebastian Vettel. Both Haas cars, both Mercedes, Mercs, Albon did make it through, and only Carlos Sainz made it through as well, with Bottas failing there. So even though upgrades have been made to the Audi Sport team, potentially maybe not enough on the aero side, maybe to pull them through, or just to be fair, other drivers being very competitive. And surprised to see both McLarens up there, so Gasly pulling his weight a little bit to maybe help his teammate out in that championship fight. And following that result in Q2, it might be a very competitive one here for the front 2 to 3 rows of this grid. Both Haas cars, both McLarens, and both us, Martini Audis, so we barrel in to the first 2 turns on our one and only flying lap in Q3, of course, with only one set of soft tyres for each session. We're going to the line. It's the last couple of seconds of the session. Across the line, it isn't the front row, but it is third place behind Sebastian Vettel. Drogovic on provisional pole, but oh, Vettel goes even quicker. Oh, Vettel was on a second run. That was his first lap, sorry. So Sebastian Vettel has snatched pole position away from Drogovic. Amazing stuff. So we're going to be on the second row in third place. Had a bit of funny business here on the in-lap here. Carlos Sainz, our old teammate, blocking us a little bit. Vettel comes through, and I decided, okay, you know what? Let's go side by side back to the pits. Let's celebrate the 1-3 here. He's done amazing off the back of a win. Now getting pole position at Canada. Goes into the hairpin. A collision I hear behind, and it's Gasly. He's crashed into Vettel, and he's broken his tyre. What on earth was going on? He wasn't on a flying lap, by the way. All of us are on an in-lap here. And he's decided just to accelerate into the back of Vettel. You can see both of us going slow side by side. You'd just usually, if this was real life, you just tuck in behind, keep your distance really. But he decided to try and go in between the both of us, or just accelerate basically and misjudge how close he was to Sebastian Vettel's rear end. And Gasly has crashed out at the end of qualifying. The weirdest kind of end of quali I've ever witnessed, really. I've seen a few AI act a bit weird on in-laps or out-laps, you know, by going slow, but I've never seen one of them just crash into another person. So very, very odd stuff there for Pierre Gasly, who is in P4 as well, so I don't know, was he just annoyed that he couldn't get any higher? I mean, he's out-qualified his teammate, who's been thrashing him this entire season for most of it, so he should be pretty happy with P4, to be honest, but very, very odd. And what we found out at the end screen after qualifying was over is that Sebastian Vettel got a 5-place penalty for that. So this qualifying just became very controversial. Gasly, all of us were in laps. Everyone had finished their laps. There was no need to go quick. Everyone was just trundling back to the pits. There was no need to accelerate, go quick, try and move. That was close on cars that are all coming in back to the pit. And he's crashed into Vettel. Vettel's just doing his thing. He's the one that accelerated Gasly, and Vettel's the one that got the penalty. So he's going to be fuming. Not the first time Sebastian's probably been left fuming at the end of a day at Montreal. So he's going to lose his pole position. Drogovic will be on pole. Will be elevated to P2, ironically, in all of that. But I'm still not happy about it because obviously we have a great vibe going on with Sebastian Vettel. So I would have loved to have seen him right there with me at the forefront, going for the race win and hopefully a double podium, you'd say. But now he's going to be further down the order. At least a good thing for us, I guess, individually, is Norris is down in P7, Albon P6. And yeah, if I was Vettel, I'd be absolutely fuming. But let's see if that anger can maybe fuel him through the grid. There may be some rain involved tomorrow as well, so it could make things extra spicy. Let's go to Sunday.
Hello and welcome to the Ile Notre Dame once again for what promises to be another incredible Canadian Grand Prix at this fiercely competitive circuit, where pole position can often be decided by less than 1/10 of a second. With top speeds of around 210 miles per hour heading into the overtaking opportunity of turn 13, the 2.7 miles of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve are some of the quickest on the Formula One calendar. There are 14 corners in total, with 60% of the lap taken at full throttle, and average speeds clock in at about 130 miles per hour. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Felipe Drugovich lines up on pole position and the owner-driver alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Gasly, Sainz, Alex Albon and Vettel, Schwartzman, Russell, Bottas and Yuki Tsunoda, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc and Magnussen, Fernando Alonso, Norris, they've taken a grid penalty, Esteban Ocon and Mick Schumacher, Théo Pourchaire, Liam Lawson, Stroll and Max Verstappen completes the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. Natalie Pinkham joins me once again in the commentary box. It's fantastic to have you with us today. I'm curious though, how do you think the drivers stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn one, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It'll keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So it's pretty damn overcast around Montreal, so that rain probably definitely is on the way. It's going to be an interesting one because according to the weather forecast, there's a small pocket of rain and then apparently it might get towards dry at the end. But we've seen sometimes in this game, obviously, the weather forecast isn't entirely accurate, just like in real life, obviously. So it does leave you guessing a little bit. So we'll just kind of see how it goes and go on the fly. But very interesting to see Drugovich on pole now, elevated to that, on the soft compound of tyre. The rest of us, or a lot of us, on the mediums. Now, if the rain is on the way and it's within a time frame of the medium tyre going the distance, I think that may end up being a bit of an operational mistaken choice by Haas. Obviously, they're a new team to be at the front of Formula One. They're not experienced in this kind of stuff, maybe. And maybe that's the kind of, little things that you pick up being a top team for a while there. I feel like Drugovich, those tyres are only going to go around 10 laps max. He's going to pit, and I don't think the rain's going to come within 10 laps. So that may end up being quite a frustrating thing for him in the cockpit, but clearly his team are seeing something that he is not, or I am not, or whatever, so they've chosen the soft compound. The rest of us on mediums looking to probably go till that wet period. Of course, if it doesn't come, if the wet period goes later and we all have to pit anyway onto another set of dry tyres, then obviously Drugovich is going to be laughing because he'll have the advantage at the start of this race on the soft tyres. But we'll try our best to maybe annoy him, but it may be difficult just with that extra pace you'll have, especially off these 5 red lights. But we'll try our best. Gasly now behind us on the second row in third place, and directly behind me is our old teammate, our old pal, Carlos Sainz. So let's hope there's no funny business in the first few laps with him and we can get away and just focus on trying to chase after and keep up with that pretty quick Repsol Haas. 4 races to go. Here we go now to 5 red lights to the Canadian Grand Prix from the front row. Lights out and away we go. It is a slow one for us. A lot of wheel spin off second place. Pierre Gasly on the inside really pushes us towards the edge of the circuit. Albon's round the outside now to make it 3 wide through turns 2. Drugovich already with a near 2-second gap this will be by the time Gasly and Albon enter the next corner. They're squabbling. We're down to P4 trying to get past Albon. He came out of nowhere really on the outside, but it was all because of Pierre Gasly being very aggressive into turn 1, getting the elbows out as he's willing, he's fair game to do, but forced us a little bit off circuit and we had to come back into the racing line and fight back a little bit. So now we're behind him down to P3, so really not the most ideal start to the race. Vettel meanwhile having had that penalty obviously from pole position, 5 places back in a sandwich between his old team, the Audi Sport Works team, behind Carlos Sainz, ahead of his old teammate Valtteri Bottas. Schwartzman P5 and Albon does amazing amazing to be up in P4. And I missed it actually in the opening grid sequence, by the way, but Lando Norris, he had a grid penalty, so he was not in the top 10. He's down in P16. This is massive. This could blow the championship wide open. He had to take engine component penalties. I'm sure that was the reason. So this is huge. So this just became an even more important race for us to do well and try and get on a podium, because even a third place would secure us maybe a lead in the championship. And so with that, it's our best interest to get past Pierre Gasly as quickly as we can. But of course, being in the McLaren, he may be a tough one to overtake, because he may put up a fight to help out his teammate, who's in a desperate situation now in this race, way down the order. All of the people chasing him down in the championship are in the top 10 in some form of points. And as we go round the outside of Gasly, that might be it for P2, but Gasly will come back at us. And for the second time this race, he gets the elbows out, forces us wide, this time completely off circuit, having to cut the grass. Albon now in the mixer as he shoots one down the inside. We have to correct ourselves, because if I kept turning in there, he may have made contact with us, and that could have been disaster for both of us. So we've kept it going in P3, but now we have to do it all over again, recompose, and try and reclose down Pierre Gasly for P2. Meanwhile, Vettel feeling some pressure from Bottas behind. So maybe Bottas a bit spiteful. Vettel got the move to our Martini Audi team, and so he's having a real go at him into the hairpin. Vettel on the outside, Bottas going the long way round, and let's see who gets the better traction. I think it may be Bottas there, showing the straight line speed of the sister Audi team, as with DRS aided as well, he gets ahead, and Albon with DRS assisted has a go at me for P3. So we're not quite looking ahead of us, we're looking behind us still, and Albon. But now, because of that little squeeze into the final bend, Albon now susceptible to Robert Schwartzman, and the Repsol Haas makes a real late move into turn 1 and very easily gets up into P4, showing the Haas team very much still have a lot of good race pace. Schwartzman up into P4, but lap 6 now, we've closed back to Gasly, but just can't get close enough right now into the hairpin. And the problem is, versus the AI consistently on this game, they just out-traction me every time out this hairpin. No matter what I've tried, they just seem to have such great mid-apex speed through there, and so it means that we can't get the run on Gasly that we need into the final corner in the final chicane just before the Wall of Champions to make a move. So again, lap 7, same area at the hairpin. This time we're a lot closer, and this time I'm thinking we have to get it down the inside of Gasly to slow him up in the hairpin itself to finish off the move on the main straight. So there we go, late lunge, no contact made, but nearly tyre to tyre, side by side. And now to drag race, he does get better traction again, like he did on the previous lap. But the difference is now we're alongside him this time, DRS aided. We're not going to deploy too much ERS to try and keep some for the next straight in case he's going to try and outbrake us, go around the outside. Gasly will hop the curb. We just take the racing line, and now we can use the ERS to push away. And now Schwartzman's the one actually attacking Gasly, so he may lose 2 positions into turn 1. Gasly defending on the inside, gets across and just really concretely defends that position. And meanwhile, you'll notice top left, Drogovic has pit from his soft tyres. So what did I say? 8 laps, not even 10, he made it. And if the rain comes in the next couple of laps, then that's going to be a mistake strategically that Haas and Drogovic are going to rue in terms of just not even just this race, the championship, because Drogovic could legitimately get his way into the fight if he was to, be able to win this race maybe. But now it's going to be a lot tougher, having made 1 extra pit stop effectively, if the rain does come, that is. But you'd say with the clouds looking very, very dark as they are, I think that rain probably is on the way. But to be fair, Drogovic did have quite a big gap in the lead, so it means he's come out in P11, so he can already get on the back of the top 10 already. But like I said, the rain was on the way, and it's come on lap 10 a lot earlier than I thought. And so in hindsight, Drogovic really should have tried to stretch those softs to go to the distance. But even though the droplets are falling quite hard, my engineer reckons it's not time to come in yet.
Okay, even though we're seeing cars start to struggle in these conditions, if we pit sprinters now, we're going to be too slow and burn them out. Make the best of it for the time being. Check your MFD for a new strategy option.
Oh, are you actually kidding me, Mark? Really? What's just happened there is He's told me some spiel about it being too early to come in. The inters will burn out, apparently. And then the second I crossed the line to start a new lap, too late to come in, he's then switched his mind and thought, oh no, it's time to come in now. Let's change for tyres. Let's update the strategy. Absolutely brilliant stuff, Mark. If it's not telling me about an engine failure, it's just bringing me the wrong information. What absolutely useless. So we've had to go for a whole lap now on a very wet circuit. Bottas out of the Grand Prix with a failure of his own. So still not great stuff there for Audi in general, I guess, with a DNF there for one of the Audi powered cars. But we're in finally. But Gasly, Schwartzman, Albon, even Vettel came in. That's just frustrating. Like, you know, what was the point of the message of telling me I don't think it's time to come in yet, when you're really not sure and you're on the precipice of saying it? Just really poor stuff. Leclerc also had the same thing. He did not come in until this lap with me. So both of us have been screwed over a little bit by our engineering staff. So we've come out now behind Vettel. We've lost effectively 5 positions in this race because of one small moment where Mark told us a bit too late about the crossover period, or he was actually telling us not to worry about the crossover period, and then suddenly was worried. Great stuff. Absolutely unbelievable. So Gasly now, all of a sudden, is into the lead of this Grand Prix. How much would Lando Norris love to be there rather than in P11? He's making good progress, though, to get back into the points. Schwartzman now to P2. Albon 3rd. Vettel 4th. Myself 5th. So it's still not horrendous. I mean, we'll still gain a lot of points on Lando, but let's try and see now if we can do anything to attack the car's head. And speaking of, Vettel might look to attack the car ahead of Albon, who makes a little error into the final corner. Lock-up, I think it was, from the tyre Brit driver. Vettel trying to go around the outside. Oh, makes a bit of contact with the Red Bull, as Albon really does not want to give up a solid podium position, which would do a lot to get him back into the championship fight. And then on the exit, I try my best to maybe catch Vettel napping a little bit, to no use though. And as ever with a circuit like this, with the walls so close, and it's a very, you know, it's not a street circuit, but it is in a park, so it is a very tricky circuit when it does rain. So we're tiptoeing around, and we lose a bit of pace then to Vettel, having made that kind of half-hearted attempt. Gasly comes in! Gasly comes in. Has he got damage? Did he make a mistake somewhere? Whatever the case, Robert Schwartzman now leads the way. Is this going to be justice for what happened in Singapore? The man was leading the entire first stint and then had an engine failure as soon as he made a pit stop. So what could have been for him and what could be now for him at the Canadian GP, because he's ahead by 2.2 to Albon, who doesn't look likely to catch him. He's kind of too preoccupied with keeping Vettel and myself behind. Meanwhile, down the order, because of Gasly's pit stop, that's elevated Norris up into P10, into 1 points paying position. Drogovic, meanwhile, sandwiched in between the two Audi sport cars, as now Perez is out of the Grand Prix, and that's caused a safety car. And it's because on further somewhere else on the circuit, Tsunoda has, oh, it's a massive spin for Yuki, and he's taken Perez out with him. It's a huge AI mistake for Tsunoda, but then even just rotten luck for Perez, really, to get caught up in that. And so that is why this safety car was out. I was kind of questioning why the safety car came out, because I thought if Perez just had an engine failure like Bottas did, then why is the safety car out? But no, that makes a lot more sense. A lot of debris on that part of the circuit, and this is a replay on board from Perez's Renault. So up ahead, Tsunoda is going to make a howler of a mistake, 360 spin, and then it's a bit of a slow crash, you know. It's just unfortunate Perez went right rather than left, but it's very hard to kind of judge those things, and so he's out of the Grand Prix. Yuki with damage, I'm sure, and so that's why we've got a full core safety car that is now coming in on lap 20, so 15 laps to go in this race. The rain doesn't look like it's letting up, you know, so there may not be a dry period to come, and off going green, trying to keep up with Sebastian Vettel as close as we can, but historically I've always found it very hard to switch on the intermediates after a safety car. The AI are so good at keeping those tyre temps and switching the tyre on straight away, and I'm having an absolute mare, locking up, nearly going onto the grass through that chicane, down the hill, right and left, and again squirming away just through that right-hander. We've lost 1.5 seconds to Vettel in about 3 corners there, and we're now holding up the likes of Russell, Drugovich, Sainz and Leclerc, and the Mercedes guys aren't looking too bad in these wet conditions, and Russell now has a run on us. We have to go defensive, and we just narrowly managed to get back to the racing line and squeeze him out, but you can see the rear end is squirming away for everyone. Drugovich now can see in the distance, may have a go at Russell. He's pulled out to the left. Russell defensive, but then he tucks back in underneath his rear wing, and then behind Leclerc, out of nowhere, dive bombs and overtakes Carlos Sainz and has a go at Drugovich. So Leclerc trying to get 2 places for 1, and meanwhile Russell has gone from defending to maybe attacking us, as again we've had poor traction off that hairpin, and that Mercedes car looks pretty damn quick there, even though we're deploying battery all the way down. Russell fully alongside us, we defend him. We also had Drugovich nipping at our heels as well on the inside there, so that could have been a 3-wide disaster moment. Thankfully not, and instead he stays sandwiched in between the 2 Mercs, and there's a massive train forming then with Sainz, Lando Norris in there, gas, and that's all from me being so slow off the safety car period. But now I've gotten away from Russell just a little bit, and I'm hoping that we can try and just get back into a groove and bridge this gap of about 4.6 seconds to Vettel, and we will eventually start to do that. Lap 25 then, 10 laps to go. The gap's now 1.7, aided by the fact that Albon's definitely slower than both me and Vettel, so he's kind of backing Vettel into me, and the gap is just growing to Schwartzman. But equally as well, finally I got my tyres switched on a bit more, and so by lap 29 we are right behind Vettel, back to where we were basically pre the safety car, in this same situation of both myself and Vettel eagerly trying to get past Albon, but it's proving very difficult, especially now also because all of us are facing tyre wear on these inters. On the bottom right, you can see the icon is orange. We're all going to the end though, because there's no dry period in sight, but it's not getting any wetter, and all of us are basically too stubborn to come in for a second set of intermediates, and I'm getting a bit frustrated behind Vettel now because my tyres are now on a brick orange indication there. We've also got a bit of engine wear potentially. I really hope that's as I just said that, I got PTSD from all those DNFs before us, but I think it's just a gearbox being worn a little bit, so I don't think we have to worry too much. But we are getting frustrated behind Sebastian because I feel like it's not his pace, it's him being held up by Albon, but the podium's there, and also, you know, Vettel is a person I am concerned about in the championship as well, so I do want to try and get past him. And on the second last lap, I sense potentially an opening at the hairpin. He leaves the door open, and like that move on Pierre Gasly, it's a bit of a copycat just in the rain. We're side by side now on the exit. It's a drag race now to the last chicane, and in equal machinery, this is going to be a very close one. We're going to nip ahead of Vettel, deploying all the battery we have, but then he tucks in the slipstream, gets to the inside late on the brakes. We're going to be side by side through the last 2 turns. Albon now can breathe a sigh of relief as he's 2.6 ahead, and it's all about this P3 fight now with myself and Vettel. We're on the racing line. Vettel with a late lunge, and he's overcooked it. He's gone off circuit. We're up into P3 for sure, and Vettel, oh no, Sebastian has completely overcooked that. He's gone off circuit onto the grass, even the painted grass, and he's now lost positions all the way down to P7. So Russell's P4, Leclerc and then Drugovich respectively 5 and 6. Vettel down to P7. This is the replay. I didn't even squeeze him at all. It's just himself. He just overcooked it, locked up a bit, went so far off circuit that it was very difficult for him to come back quickly, and it's so, you know, awkward because that's the racing line right there on the curb, so you can't exactly just steamroll back onto the circuit. So it's an uncharacteristic mistake from Vettel as we know him in this career mode. You know, he's been pretty inch perfect in this My Team series, especially for us as a teammate, but that was maybe a chink in the armour there, and maybe the first signs of that dynamic changing. You know, I felt like maybe if that was season 3, I would have been the one that would have overcooked it into a corner like that, but now it's his turn to make a mistake like that, lock up, go too deep. And so with that, we're tiptoeing around in the last lap. A lot of tyre wear on these inters in 3rd place, but it's going to be Robert Schwartzman that gets his first Formula 1 victory. And for Repsol Haas, it is redemption for last episode where he had a DNF from the lead in that first stint. Albon with a crucial 2nd place and 18 points to get himself back in the championship after some dismal races for Red Bull. And for us, a third place, I think well could mean the lead of the championship with Lando Norris so far down the order. Vettel probably ruining that mistake, could have gained a lot more in the championship himself, but these things happen in the wet.
Great work from the Haas team. They take a famous win here today. So Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
I think we'll chalk this one up as a deft touch on the brake pedal. That's allowed them to challenge down the inside in the braking zones, and ultimately, if you do that often enough, you'll end up winning the race. It was great to watch as well, wasn't it? Forget strategy, forget tyre management. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned scrap?
Haas are no doubt happy with today's performance, having secured the win here this weekend, and our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations as we speak.
It's a third win for Repsol Haas this season, and this time it is Robert Schwartzman. Obviously was gutting to see him have the engine failure last episode after he was having a very dominant display, I feel, in the first stint, so it really does feel like redemption for him. But what a showing for Albon after a string of like 3 races of really not scoring many points, if any points in 1 or 2 of them. He needed these 18 points to get himself back into the frame of things, basically. But for third place for us, with Lando Norris finishing down in P9 with only 2 points to his name, that is huge for our championship. And as I said, with that engine penalty anyway, from the get-go of 5 red lights for Lando Norris, you knew that the championship could be blown open by any of us. And for us, thankfully, it is going to be us that succeeds the most, as we are now into the lead once more of the Drivers' Championship. A couple of points ahead of Albon, who's a level on points with Lando Norris. So those two will be gunning to try and chase after me now. Vettel, P4, didn't gain as many points as he thought he would. The same for Drugovich, but they're both still very much kind of in it. I mean, Drugovich maybe a little bit less so, but if he was to dominate the rest of the season, as he has potential to do with how quick that Haas car is, you just never know. And then obviously with Vettel, a small mistake today easily could have been P3 for him, or just even P4, and that would have been a different situation then in the points. So it's all to play for with only 3 rounds to go now. It's very much crunch time, and I have to be the bearer of bad news. There's obviously still the floating thing of, you never know, I could still have another engine failure. I really hope not, because that would be just so depressing, but it could happen. But equally, it could happen for one of our rivals. There may be overdue one, bit of balancing force there, so we'll have to see. But Red Bull, with Albon's podium, actually get level on with McLaren in the Constructors. So in the Constructors fight, there's also a bit of a battle going on for P2 there between Red Bull and McLaren, and then also Repsol Haas pushing away from Mercedes and maybe trying their best to close up to McLaren and Red Bull by the end of the season, which I think they could do if both their drivers are scoring top 4 positions every race from now on for the remainder. But we're going to have to just see. But guys, if you have enjoyed this one, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.